What is going on, friends? In this lesson, we are going to build an ATS resume parser using Django and a machine learning model. A use case is to check if your resume is ATS compatible. This app can also be used to extract information from a CV when applying for jobs. Let's do a quick demo of the project. I'm going to select a file which is above 2 megabytes. Let's try it out. Max file size is 2 megabytes. Now let's try with a smaller file. I'm going to select this resume. Pass your resume. This may take a few seconds. Great. As you can see, this information is extracted from the resume. We are also going to use PyTest to write automated test cases for the project. To do well and get the most out of this lesson, two prerequisites are needed: Python and a basic knowledge of Django. Without any delay, let's get started. First of all, I'm going to create a virtual environment for this project. Python 3 -m virtual env ls. Now let's activate the virtual environment. So we have the virtual environment activated. Next, we need to install Django inside the virtual environment. Pip install Django. We are going to use the Django admin command to create a new Django project. Django admin start project resume project ls. As you can see, a new directory has been created. CD resume parser project. So I'm going to use VS Code to open the project. Let me open a new terminal. So I want to activate the virtual environment. Source virtual environment. Now let's navigate back into the project. In the settings file, I'm going to comment out the database since we don't intend to use any database in this project. Now let's run the server. Python manage.py run server. The server is running. We are going to access the website on this URL. We are good to go. Within the created project, we are going to create an app to isolate the ATS functionalities. An app is a way to isolate a specific group of functionalities in a project. In a Django project, you can have multiple apps. So let's create the first app. Python manage.py start app parser. The name of the app we intend to create is Parser. As you can see, a new directory has been created by Django. Once an app is created, we need to register such app in the project. That can be done in the settings file. Let's look for the installed apps. Some apps come with Django by default. So we are going to include the one we just created. The name of the app is Parser. Parser. Now let's create the views. When a user visits the home page, we want to return an HTML template. Let's call the view home def home request return render. The first argument we need to pass to render is request, which is this request. Let's pass the request. And also we need to pass the name of the templates. Let's call the template index.html. index.html. We are going to create the HTML file shortly. The type of request is HTTP request. Let's copy that. Now let's import HTTP request from Django. From Django.http imports HTTP request. Next, let's create the file which we want to return. Within the app, we are going to create a directory for keeping all the HTML files in this app. Let's call the directory templates. Templates. Within the templates folder, I want to create a new file called index.html. Now the content of this is going to be HTML5 ATS resume parser. Now let's define the URL for this app. Essentially, the URL we want to create is similar to what we have in the project. It is similar to what we have here. This URL belongs to the project. It was auto-generated by Django. I'm going to copy it. Let's create a new file called urls.py. From this same directory, import views. So if the path is root, which is an empty string, we want to use the home views. Views.home. We can give a URL a name equals homepage, home_page. Now we are going to register these URLs belonging to the app in the project. It is a way of letting the project know that we want to use the URLs in this app. As you can see, within the project, we have a general URLs file. So we need to include the URLs belonging to the app in the project. Let's copy the example provided. We also need to import include from URLs. So when any request is coming from the root URL, we want the URLs in the Parser app to handle it. Parser.urls. Again, for the root domain, we want the home view to handle it. Let's run the server again. Python manage.py run server. Let's reload. It works. ATS resume parser. This content is coming from the HTML template. If you take a look at settings, under templates, app directories is set to true. This means the template engine should look for the HTML templates inside installed apps. So when it is looking for an HTML file, it looks for it in the templates directory. If I was to set it to false, an exception will be raised. Let's reload the page. Template does not exist. Let's change it back to true. For now, we have a view working as expected. Let's quickly write a test case for it. We are going to use pytest. Let's install pytest. Pip install pytest and also pytest Django, which is a library needed to work with pytest in Django. Great. Now let's create a new folder that is going to contain the test cases for this app. Let's create the folder test. This test file was generated by Django, so we are going to delete it. Also, I would like to make the test directory a package. We can do that by creating the init file inside it. Let's create a new file named test_views. This file is going to contain the test cases for the views. The first test will be test home. Remember that we intend to test the home view. To send an HTTP request from the client to the server, we need an instance of the test client from Django. Let's import the client from Django. From Django.test.client, import the client class. When the client class is instantiated, we can easily call different HTTP methods on it. Let's try that out. Clients.get. As you can see, we have different methods we can call on it. .puts, posts. These are all the different HTTP methods. Head. So it makes sense to put this reusable part in a fixture. Fixtures are reusable functions for your test cases. We are going to create a conftest.py file outside of the app. Now let's create the file outside of the app. Let's put the file at the root directory because we want test cases from every app to access it. conftest.py. I'm going to copy the client from the test views. Let's put it in conftest. From Django.test.client, import client. Def client return an instance of the client. Import pytest. To make the function a fixture, we need to decorate it at pytest.client fixture. Now let's make use of the client in the test. So we are going to pass the client here. We can say the type of the client is clients. Let's import the client again from Django.test.client import client. The type of this fixture is clients. The home URL is this URL. So you can reference a URL by mentioning the name. So we are going to make use of this name in the test views. So we need to say URL equals reverse. We need to import reverse from Django URLs. From Django.urls import reverse. When you pass a URL name to reverse, it looks for that specific URL. Now we have a URL. We want to make a GET request to the URL. So we can say response, which is a new variable, equals clients dot get. Now we need to pass the URL to get. Get takes the first parameter as the path, which is the path we want to visit. After a request is made, let's make some assertions. Assert response dot status code equals 200. The template returned by the view contains resume parser. So we can assert that the content sent to the client has resume parser. So let's do that in the test. Assert resume parser in response.content. The type of the content is bytes. So this string should be in bytes. Before we run the test, we need to create PyTest configuration file. Let's see what happens when there is no PyTest configuration file. PyTest, let's run the program. Let's see what the error is. You must either define the environment variable Django settings module. PyTest needs to know about Django settings file. So let's create the configuration file for PyTest. The name of the file is pytest.ini. So we can create a section for PyTest. PyTest. This settings, Django settings module, copy, equals, we need to mention the settings file for this project. The settings file is located inside resume parser project and settings. Let me copy the name of the project. So we need to say the name of the project dot settings. Now we've specified the settings file for the project. We can also mention Python files, Python_files equals tests.py, tests_*py, and also *tests.py. These are just the patterns for the test files. Let's also make use of adopts equals -v-ra. Now let's run the test. PyTest 1 passed. Now let's work on the view which handles resume upload. Def upload _resume request HTTP request if request dot method equals post and request dot files dot get file, else return JSON response. We need to import JSON response, error, and the value is invalid request. We want this view to handle a post request with a file sent along. If not, we want to return an error. Let's specify the status to be 400. Status equals 400, which is the status code. Let's link the upload resume view to a URL. Let's go into the URLs file, urls.py. Let's copy what we have here. So we can say upload dash resume. We want to make use of views.uploadResume, and the name of the view, let's call it upload resume, upload_resume. Now let's check if the server is running. I'm going to keep a separate terminal to run the server. Python manage.py run server. We are going to send a GET request to the upload URL to see what happens. Let's visit the URL. I'm going to use Insomnia to try it out. Upload resume. Now let's try it out. Invalid request. The error is coming from this line of code because we sent a request that is not a post request. When a resume is uploaded, we need to validate the size and the type of the file uploaded. So I'm going to create a new module called validators.py. Validators.py. We need two functions: validate file extensions. Def validates file size. This should be extension. We need to pass the parameter as a file object, and the type of the file object is uploaded file. Uploaded file. Let's import uploaded file from Django.core.files.uploaded file import uploaded file class. Also, let's import the validation error from Django.core.exceptions import validation error. Now let's declare the valid extensions. Valid_extensions equals .pdf.docs.doc extension equals. We can use the OS module to determine the extension of a file. So we need to import OS. Imports OS. os.path.split extension. We need to pass the name of the file object. File object.name. There is a couple of attributes available on a file object: the content type, the name. We want to use the name of the file since we want to determine the extension of the file. SplitExt returns a tuple and the extension is at the index of 1. Index of 1. So this is going to return the extension. The type of the extension is a string. If extension dot lower, we want to convert the extension to a lowercase, not in valid extensions. Then we want to raise an exception, raise a validation error, and the content is going to be f strings. Only PDF and docs formats are allowed. Let's say which is the extension detected. So if the file extension is not in valid extensions, we want to raise an error. Only PDF and docs formats are allowed. The name of the extension detected. Next, we need to work on the file size. The parameter is a file object and the type of file object is uploaded file. Let's say max upload size equals to 097.152, which is in bytes. We are going to say if file object dot size, there is a size property on the uploaded file. If file object dot size is greater than max upload size, then we want to raise an exception, raise validation error. We are going to say max file size is 2 megabytes. Now let's write unit test cases for the two functions. So I'm going to create a new file called test_validators .py, which is inside the test directory. We need to import the functions which we want to test from parser.validators import validate file extension, validate file size. Dev test validates file extension, dev test validates file size. To test the functions, we need to pass a file object to it. So we can make use of simple uploaded file to create a file object. We are going to say from django.core.files.uploaded file import simple uploaded file. This is a good time to make use of PyTest parameterization because we want to run the test with different inputs. So we can use different extensions and see if an exception is raised. Remember that if an extension is not valid, a validation error is raised. So the parameters will be extension and is exception raised. Is exception raised? Let's create a file object. File equals simple uploaded file. The name of the file is going to be sample file.png and the contents of the file is going to be in bytes notes. So we want the extension part to be different inputs. Let's make use of f strings. This is going to be extension. Let's decorate the test with @pytest.parameterize. We need to import pytest. Import pytest. We can say @pytest.mark.parameterize. We need to pass the two parameters. Extension is exception raised. Exception raised. Now the values: CSV true, MP4 true, MP3 true, PDF is false. So the test is going to run for each of the values we have. We also want to make use of doc is false and also docs is also false. Now we are going to use PyTest to assert that an exception is raised when the file format is invalid. We are going to say if is exception raised, that is if exception is expected to be raised. We want to use PyTest to assert that the exception was raised. If is exception raised, I think we should rename this parameter. The parameter is the expected output. So we can say is exception expected. Let's rename that expected. Is exception expected? That is, if an exception is expected to be raised, then we want to use PyTest to assert that that exception was raised. So let's say with PyTest.raises, what you need to pass to raises is expected exception. Let's go to validators to see the expected error. We need validation error. Let's copy the imports. We are going to pass the validation error to raises. Now we can call validate file extension. We need to pass the file to the function. This means we are using PyTest to assert that when this function is called, an exception is raised, and the exception raised is validation error. Optionally, you can pass match. Match equals. Match is the pattern for the error message. Let's copy the error message. Only PDF and docs formats are allowed. So this is the pattern for the error message. Else asserts validate file extension, the file object, the file. Remember that if an exception is not raised, validate file extension is going to return none because functions return none by default. It means that this part of the code is expected to have a false value. Now let's run the test. pytest-k. The same test function runs for different inputs. Now let's write a test for the file size. I'm going to copy the previous test. Let's say test validate file size. We need the size of the file underscore size, and also the first parameter is the file size, file underscore size 3097152. This is above 2 megabytes, so it should raise an exception. Let's use another size 6 underscore 097152. This is about 6 megabytes. Let's specify 2 megabytes, 200 and 00. Is exception raised is false. Let's say the file name is PDF. Immediately we create a file. We want to update the size property for the file. So let's say file.size to be the file size. If an error is expected to be raised, then we want to use pytest to assert that the error was raised. The error is validation error, and the name of the function is validate file size. Let's take a look at the function. So max file size is 2 megabytes, which is the error message, the pattern of the error message, validate file size. So this test case is going to run for each of the inputs because we are making use of parameterize. Let's run the test to see what happens. Pytest and the name of the test. Great. This means the validators are working as expected. Now let's make use of the validators in the views. We have the views from .validators imports validate file size, validate file extension. File equals request dot files, and we want to get the file. The type of the uploaded file is uploaded file. Let's make use of that. Uploaded file. Let's import that from Django. From Django.cores.files.uploaded file. Import uploaded file. Now we are going to call the validators in a try except block. Try. Let's say validate file extension. We need to pass the file to it. We also want to call the validate file size. We are going to pass the file to it. Then we want to say except validation error. If there is any validation error, we need to import the validation error from Django. From Django.core.exceptions import validation error. Accept validation error as error. Then we want to return a JSON response if there is a validation error, and the error is error.message, the message attribute on the error. So if a validation error occurs, this block is going to handle it. Let's specify the upload URL in the templates. So we want to look for where fetch is used. We are making use of fetch to make a network call to the server. So we need to specify the upload URL. Let's make use of Django templates, URL, and the name of the URL is upload resume. This corresponds to a URL in the project. Let's look for the URLs in the app. The name of the URL for upload is upload resume. Now let's try to upload a file. The server is running. Let's reload the page. I'm going to select a file which is an image. Let's test it out. Only PDF and docs formats are allowed. .png detected. Let's select a PDF file which is above 2 megabytes. Let's see what happens. Max file size is 2 megabytes. I think we should let the user know the file size uploaded. We need to update the validators. You uploaded, so we need to make use of f strings. The file size, file object dot size. The file size is in bytes, so we need to convert it to megabytes. Divided by 1,048,576. This is equivalent to 1 megabyte. So let's say megabyte. Let's try out the file upload again. So let's try it out. We would like to convert this number to 2 decimal places. 2 decimal place. Let's do that in Python. .2f. Now let's try it out again. Max file size is 2 megabytes. You uploaded 12.54 megabytes. So when a file is uploaded, we need to first read the content of the file before using AI to extract information out. File underscore content equals read underscore uploaded file. Then we need to pass the file content to it. We need to work on the function which reads the content of a file. I'm going to create a new file called utils.py. This file will contain utility functions used in this app. Def read uploaded file. We need to pass a file object to it. The file object is uploaded file. Uploaded file. So we need to import the uploaded file from Django, from django.core.files.uploaded file imports uploaded file, which is a class. There is a couple of libraries we can use to read a PDF or a Word document. I'm going to use a library called PyMU-PDF. The library can be used to read PDF and Word documents. Let's install the library. Pip install PyMU-PDF. The library is installed. Let's import the installed library. Import PyMU-PDF. We want to use PyMU-PDF to read the content of the uploaded file. I'm going to leave a link to the PyMU-PDF documentation so you can see how it can be used. With PyMU-PDF.open, the open function, then we want to pass the file to it. Stream is going to be the file object.read. And also we need to specify the file type. So we don't have the file type. That means we need another parameter in this function. File underscore extension is a string data type, str. Now the file type is going to be the file extension. As documents, we are going to initialize a variable to hold the content. Text equals an empty string. We are going to say for page underscore number in length of the document, which is the length of the document. Let's make use of the range function, range. For each page number in the document, we want to load the page. Let's say page equals document dot load page. We need to pass the page number. This means we want to load a particular page. Now we are going to say text plus equals page dot get text. We want to get the text content in the page. For each page in the document, we want to get the text, and when we get the text, we want to add the text to the initial text. So let's return the text. Return. This function returns a string data type. The next step is to make use of the function. Let's make use of the function in the views. We need to import the function from .utils imports read uploaded file. Let's make use of the read uploaded file. Read uploaded file. For this function, we need the file object and the extension. Let's make the validate file extension to return the extension. So we are going to say ext, which is a string data type, equals validate file extension. Then we are going to pass the extension to the file. Now let's work on validate file extension. Return ext extension. Let's go back to the utils, to the views. Let's print the file content on the screen, file content, to be the file contents. Now let's try to upload a file to see what happens. The server is running. I'm going to reload this page. Let's select a PDF file. Let me select my resume. Now let's upload the file. Invalid request. It works. We have the content of the resume or the PDF file printed on the screen. This is coming from the PDF file. Let's write test cases for read uploaded file. I'm going to create a new test file called test_utils, test_utils.py. First, we need to import the function we want to test from parser.utils import read uploaded file. Now let's create the test function test read uploaded PDF file. Let's create another function to test an uploaded Word document. Test read uploaded doc file. For us to test read uploaded file, we need a PDF file or a Word document. So I'm going to create a PyTest fixture which generates the needed file. Let's create the fixture file conftest.py. Remember that we already have a conftest.py file at the root. This file contains fixtures used across the project. PDF file generation is specific to the Parser app alone. That's why we are keeping the context in the app, which is in the tests directory. Let's create the two fixtures. Generate PDF file. Generate doc file. Within this fixture, we need to create a PDF file. We also need to create a Word document in the second fixture. To do that, I'm going to install two packages. Pip install Python docs and fpdf. The first package is for creating a Word document. The second package is for PDF. We have the two libraries installed. Let's turn the two functions to a fixture, pytest.fixture. Let's import pytest. Import pytest. Pytest.fixture. Now let's import the two libraries from docs. Import document from fpdf. Import fpdf, which is a class. Essentially, we want to create a temporary file which can be deleted after the test. So we need to import the temp file module from temp file. Import named temporary file, which is used for creating a temporary file. Now let's create the temporary file with named temporary file as temp file. With named temporary file, the suffix of the file we want to create is .pdf. So let's say suffix equals .pdf. We intend to create a PDF file. Also, we want to specify the mode as write binary. Remember that the content of a PDF file is in binary. The final argument we want to pass is delete equals false. Delete equals false means that when we exit out of the with block, we don't want the temporary file created to be deleted. I will suggest you watch my PyTest video if you are not familiar with named temporary file. Now we want to create a PDF file. Let's say PDF, an instance of fpdf dot add page. We want to add a new page to the PDF file, and also pdf dot set font. We want to set the font. The font is going to be Arial and the size is going to be 12. pdf dot cell, a new cell. The width can be 200, 100, and the text equals, this is a sample document. Align to be center. pdf.output. pdf.output, which is for saving the file to a destination. We need to pass the temp file .name. This means the created PDF file, we want to save it as the temporary file created. The PDF file created is saved at the location of the temp file. That's why we use temp file.name. Git temp file.name. Immediately after the test, we want to delete the created file os.remove. Let's import the os module. Imports os. We want to remove the temporary file created, temp file.name. Next, let's generate a Word document. I'm going to copy the previous code. Generate Word doc. First, the file extension is going to be docs. And also we can create a Word document in this block. Let's say document equals document, an instance of the document class. Then we want to add a paragraph. Doc.add paragraph. The paragraph is going to be, this is a sample document. Now we want to say doc.save. We need to save the Word document. As you can see, we can pass the path of the file to the save method. So let's say temp file.name, which returns the path of the file. Let's make the file content a constant. File underscore content, which is a string data type, equals, this is a sample document. Then let's make use of this contents, file contents, file contents. Now let's make use of generate PDF file and generate doc file in test utils, test underscore utils, which is this file. Within test read uploaded PDF file, we want to create a PDF file. So let's make use of the fixture generate PDF file. Generate PDF file returns the location of the created file. We want to open the generate PDF file. We are going to pass generate PDF file. Remember, it returns the path of the created PDF file. Generate PDF file. The open mode is going to be read binary as file objects. Once we have opened the file, we want to pass it to the function which we want to test. Read uploaded file. This function needs a file object, which is the file object, and the extension. The extension is PDF. Let us assign the return value of this function to a variable test underscore results equals assert test results equals file content, file underscore content. Remember that we have a constant content saved into the file. This is the content. We can import the content from test utils. So we can import the content from .conftest. From .conftest, import file contents. We want to check if the function returns the actual content of the file. The content of the file is file content. We can say pytest -k and the name of the test. Let's run the test. The test failed. Let's look at the error. This is a sample document and a new line equals this is a sample document. It turns out that a new line is added when we create the PDF file. I would like to see the created PDF file. Let's go back into the fixtures. Now let's print out the name of the created PDF file. Print, let's say file name, and the file name is tempfile.name. I'm going to comment out this part so that the file is not deleted after the test. So let's run the test again to see what happens. Alright, this is the name of the file. Let me copy the name of the file. Let's navigate to the temp directory. We can then open the name of the file. Let's list out the content. Now let's open the file. Alright, this is the created file. We can see that a new line is actually added to the file. So I'm going to include a new line in the test case plus a new line. Now let's rerun the test. It works. Let's remove the comment we put here. Now let's complete the second test. Test read uploaded doc file. I'm going to copy this. Then we can make use of the fixture generate doc file. Now we want to pass the doc file into the open function as file objects. Now let's run the test again to see what happens. Paste. Alright, I think there's a mistake here. We are meant to say the file type is docs. Let's rerun the test. Great, it works. Let's run all the test cases by test. Okay, 3 failed. Assert not PDF. This error is because we modified validate file extension. Let's go back into the test validators. Validate file extension. The validate file extension returns a string. Let's update the test. Assert validate file extension. Remember that when an exception is not raised, the file extension is returned. So we need to assert this. Now let's run all the test cases again. It works. Now we need to work on the function which extracts information from the resume. To achieve this, we are going to use Llama machine learning model by Meta. You can decide to use any suitable models. Let's create a function named extract resume info. Def extract resume info. In a previous video, I explained how to create a user with specific permissions on AWS. In this case, we need a user with Amazon Bedrock full access. So once you have created the user, you will need to create the access key and the secret key. I explained everything in a previous video. Check the link below for the video. So the credentials are put in a .env file. Let's create a .env file, touch.env, which is going to contain the environment variables. Let me copy the environment variables from where I saved it. Make sure you don't expose the credentials to the public. The next step is to request access to the machine learning model you want to use. We are going to do that on AWS. On AWS, the name of the service is Amazon Bedrock. Then you click on Modify Model Access. Then you need to select the models you wish to use. Let's select one more model. Now you click Next, and finally you submit it. Now I'm going to keep the credentials in the settings file. Let's look for the settings file. This is the settings file. That way you can easily know the credentials used in the project. we have three credentials: gen_AI_access key equals. We are going to use config to read the environment variables. Secret key, and also gen AI region, generative AI. So all these credentials will be read from the environment variables. We need to install Python decouple. Pip install Python decouple. Now let's make use of config from Python decouple. From decouple, import config. To establish a connection with AWS, we need to install Boto3. Pip install Boto3. So we are installing the library. I'm going to follow the example from AWS documentation. So we have to import Boto3 and JSON. We need to establish a connection with AWS using Boto3. Alright, so let's go back into the code. First, let's create a dictionary for holding the credentials. Let's say AI_credentials_options equals a dict data type, and the region name is coming from settings dot gen_AI_region AWS access key ID. This is also coming from the settings file, settings dot gen AI access key. We also need the secret key, AWS secret access key, settings dot gen AI secret key. We need to import settings from Django.conf import settings. The settings are the configurations in the settings file. Let's write a prompt data equals you are an AI bot designed to act as a professional for parsing resume. You are given a resume and your job is to extract the following information from the resume. So one, let's say, is applicant name. Two, let's say highest level of education. Three, let's say area of study. 4, let's say institution. Introduction. Also we have the skills, which is expected to be a string. We also have English proficiency level. The template for the experiences is going to be employee, employer, name, role, and the duration. We are good to go. Give the extracted information info in JSON formats only. And also, let's say notes. If the info is not present, leave the field blank. Now we have a prompt we want to use. Let me look at the example in the documentation. The name of the service is Bedrock Runtime, and then we can pass the credentials, AI credentials. Let's put the connection in a try and except block. Try accepts exception as E. Payload, which is what we intend to send, equals the prompt. We need to say instruction plus prompt data resume content plus text. When we call extract resume info, we need to pass the content of the file, let's say text, and the type of text is a string data type. Now let's specify the max gen length 1024. This is similar to what we have here. We can also specify the temperature. The temperature is going to be 0.5, and let's say top P is going to be 0.9. We can say the body equals json.dumps the payload. Let's import JSON. We also need to specify the model ID, accepts, and the content type. Model ID equals meta.llama2 70b chat version 1. Now we can say response equals bedrock dot invoke model. Then we need to pass the body to be the body. The model ID equals model. Also we need accept equals application JSON, and type equals application JSON. And now we need the response body. We can say response body equals JSON dot loads response dot get body dot read. Response text, which is a string data type, equals response body generation. Let's print the response text on the screen. Response, and it's a response text. Now let's handle when there is an exception. Raise validation error from Django.core.exceptions import validation error. Something went wrong, and the status code is going to be 500 error. Now let's try to make use of the function in the views. Let's go into the views. So we need to import the function extract resume info. Data equals extract resume info, and we need to pass the file content to the function. Now let's try to upload a new resume. Let's run the server. Let me select a resume, let's say pink resume. Now let's upload the file. It may take a few seconds. We have the response. Let's check the terminal. We can see that the information is extracted from the resume, and also we have the experiences, the employer name, the role, the duration. I'm going to open the actual resume So let's open the resume to see what we have. This is the resume that was uploaded. If you take a look at the response, it contains extra information after the JSON format. This means there could be a short message before and after the actual data. For instance, AI could say, "This is the extracted information." What we are going to do now is to locate the first and the last curly braces from the response. We can say start equals response text dot find. We want to find the first curly braces. End equals response text dot argfind plus 1. We want to find the last curly braces. We need to add 1. I will tell you why we need plus 1 shortly. JSON string equals response text. Now we want to make use of string slicing. The starting index is starts and the ending index is end. Remember that when we are slicing, the upper band is not included. For instance, if we say 0 to 3, the upper band is not included. So for the upper band to be included, we need to increment it by 1. Data equals JSON string. Let's return the data to the caller of the function. Return data. Let's send the data returned to the client. Return JSON response, and the status is going to be 200. Let's try to upload a resume. The server is running. Downloads, and it is pink. Let's upload the resume. This may take a few seconds. Great, the information is returned to the client. Applicant name, highest level of education, area of study. Now let's write test cases for upload resume view. Test_view. First, we want to check how the view responds to an invalid file. Let's say def test upload resume invalid extension. The URL is going to be reverse and the name of the URL is upload resume, upload_resume. We can use simple uploaded file to create a file from django.core.files.uploaded file imports uploaded file. Invalid file equals simple uploaded file, simple uploaded file, simple uploaded file. So the name is going to be test.txt and the content can be, let's say, file content. Response equals client. We need to make use of client, and the type of client is client class. Client.post. Remember, we want to send a post request to the URL. The file we want to send along is the invalid file. The format for sending file is multipart equals part. We want to assert that the status code is 400. Assert response.status code equals 400. We also want to assert that there is an error in the response. Error in response.json. I'm going to print the JSON response on the screen so you can see what is returned. Returned response.json. Now let's run the test. Test upload resume invalid extension. pytest -k and the name of the test. There is an error. The expectation is that when the file extension is invalid, a 400 status code should be returned, but a 200 is returned. First of all, let's check the content of what is returned. Let's rerun the test. Only PDF and docs formats are allowed. It looks like we are not using the correct status code in the views. So let's go into the views. Alright, so let's update the status code to be status equals 400. The default status code is 200, so we are modifying it to be 400. Let's run the test. Great, it works. Next, we need to test for a valid file upload. The test function def test upload PDF file tests upload doc file. We need the client, and the type of the client is client. Generate PDF file. Remember that we have a fixture named generate PDF file. The fixture returns the name of the created PDF file. URL equals upload resume this. Let's group the upload test cases into a class so that we can reuse some attributes. Class test upload resume. Let's make all these methods. These are now methods, and the first parameter is going to be self. Now we can declare a class variable. Let's say upload resume URL equals reverse of upload. We can remove this URL. Now we can reference the upload resume URL, self.upload resume URL. We don't need this. Now we want to open the returned file and send it to the server. With open, the name of the file is generate PDF file. It returns the name of the PDF file, and the mode is going to be read binary as uploaded file. Now let's say response equals client dot post a post request, and the URL is going to be self.upload resume URL. The data we are sending to the server is going to be file. We open the PDF file as uploaded file, and then we are sending it to the server. The format is multi-part. We want to assert that the response code asserts response.status code equals 200. When we upload a valid file, an external service is responsible for the data extraction. So in test mode, we may not want to connect to the real service. Let's try to run the test to see what happens. pytest-k, and the name of the test is this. Let's point out the response.json to see what happens when a valid file is uploaded, which is a PDF in this case. As you can see, this error is coming from the code. We are getting this error because my computer is in flight mode, so the code could not connect to AWS. In test mode, we don't want to connect to the real service, which is AWS. To achieve that, we need to mock the service because we don't want a real connection to be established with AWS. Now, let's mock the external service. First, I'm going to install pytest mock. Pip install pytest mock. So I'm going to create a fixture that mocks invoke model. Invoke model does the actual call to the machine learning model. Let's create a fixture for mocking the invoke model. Fixture def mock invoke model at pytest.fixture. To make it a fixture, we can use mocker because we've installed pytest mock, and the type of mocker is mock fixture. Let's import that from pytest mock import mock fixture. mocked model, that is the model which we want to mock, mocker.patch. You can pass the path of what you want to mock into patch. So we want to mock boto3.client.invoke model. We want to mock this boto3.client and the invoke model. We are trying to mock the invoke model on boto3 clients. We've mocked invoke model in this fixture. Now let's use the fixture in the test. Test utils, test views. We have mocked invoke model in this fixture. Let's use the fixture in the test case. We have to say mock invoke model. Let's run the test. Test upload PDF file. No module named Noto3. We are making use of Boto3. No module named Boto3. Let's take a look at the fixture. This is meant to be Boto3. Client does not have the attribute invoke model. It turns out that the client does not have the invoke attributes. Remember that we are calling invoke model on the clients. It means that this function could not be found in the package. Let's upgrade Boto3 to see if the issue can be resolved. Pip install Boto3 upgrade. We are using the latest version of Boto3, so let's rerun the test. This means this invoke method could not be found. So if this is the case, we have to mock boto3.client. Let's go into the fixture. Mock boto3.client equals boto3.client. So we want to mock the boto3 clients. Mock boto3 client dot return value equals boto3 response. When boto3.client is called, we want to set a return value for it. boto3.client.return value equals boto3 response. Boto3 response is going to be a magic mock. Boto3 response equals mocker.magic mock. That is, the return value of boto3 client should be a mock. This means when boto3 client is called, we want to return a mock object. Now, we want to manually set invoke model attributes on the response. Boto3 response dot invoke model equals invoke model mock version. Boto3 response dot invoke model dot return value equals invoke model response. When invoke model is called, we want to set the return value. So the return value is going to be invoke model response. Remember that we first set the attribute on boto3 response. Invoke model is also going to be a mock. Invoke model version is going to be a magic mock, mocker dot magic mock. Now we need to set the return value of the invoke model. So this is going to be invoke model response. Invoke model response is also going to be a mock. Invoke model response equals to mocker dot magic mock. I'm going to split the screen into two. So we need the utils. Now we want to set a new attribute on the invoke method response. So we can say invoke method response dot get the name of the attribute we want to set on invoke method response is get, and the return value return underscore value equals mock response get. Now we need to define mock get response. Mock get response. We want to make the response returned by get to be bytes IO because the read method is used on it. So we can say bytes IO. Let's import the library bytes IO. From IO import bytes IO. Before that, let's create a sample response. Sample response, which is a dictionary generation, and the content is a string applicant name. Let's say Ray. So we can say JSON.dumps. We want to dump the content of sample response encode to be UTF-8. So we are setting the value returned by get to be this, which is bytes IO. Let's make the fixture to return a mock version of invoke method. The name of the variable is invoke model mock version. It returns magic mock. So we can import that from unit test. Let me do a quick recap of what is happening here. First, we mock Boto3 clients and we set the return value of Boto3 client to be Boto3 response. Boto3 response is a mock, a magic mock. On Boto3 response, we manually set an attribute which is invoke model. The invoke model is also a mock. Next, we set the return value of invoke model. This means when invoke model is called, we want this to be returned. Invoke model response is also a mock. On invoke model response, we set a new attribute called gets, and we set the return value of get to be mock get response. Mock get response is bytes IO. We need to make it bytes IO because we are using the read method on what is returned. Now let's go back into the test. I'm going to close this test views. Mock invoke model returns a magic mock. The type magic mock. We need to import that from unit tests. Now we are asserting that the status code is 200. We also want to assert that the invoke model is called once. We need to say mock invoke model dot assert called once. Now let's run the test again. Test upload PDF file. Let's see what happens. Great, it works as expected. On a mock object, we can access the call arguments. Call arguments, which is a dict data type, equals mock invoke model dot call args dot keyword args. Assert call args dot get. We want to assert that invoke model is called with certain arguments: body, model ID, and the content type. Let's make use of content type in the test views. The content type is assert the content type is this. Is application JSON. Let me split the screen. Application JSON. We also want to assert the call model. Assert call arguments dot get the model ID to be the Llama 2 model. Now let's run the test. It works. Let's work on upload doc file. So I'm going to copy this. Let's copy what we have here. So we need to generate a doc file. Generate doc file. Let's pass the doc file into the open function. Now let's run the test. Test upload doc file. PyTest and the name of the test. Paste. It works as expected. Once again, let's rerun all the test cases. PyTest. I hope you find value in this lesson. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.